Basically, my belief still is like you should never be violating that lint rule. I don't think the React team, core team would add it if there's any legitimate case for it to be violated.
Yeah, I mean, so yes, I agree with you.
I don't.
But
it's a separate question
reality,
of saying if a team is having
Yes.
a pragmatic position where it's too hard to figure out the quote right way to do it.
Right.
Then they do that, and I'm not going to blame them for it. That's why it's not a runtime error. It's a lint rule. But I think there's a deeper point usually. Every time, actually, in my experience, there's a deeper point I'm missing if I feel like the problem I'm trying to solve can only be solved by violating the ES lint rule.
I mean, I guess that's fair. When I'm working in code bases, I don't like when I see that, I just say, I don't try to unravel it. I just move on to the.
Yeah, because you're doing work.
Yeah, I mean,
I try to unravel it, and then I stay up till 3 o'clock in the morning, and then I ruin my week.
I'm doing work is sometimes can get used as like a cheap cop out.
Yeah,
and and just in this case, I think like, okay, I'm going to trust that this effect is doing what it should be doing. It's probably not because it's an effect, but
yeah.
I usually.
But it's a lot to ask, though. Like the effect stuff is a lot to ask. Now, this is not unique to React. People have been abusing frameworks forever, and people have abused tons of Rails code bases and have made bad excuses for not learning how to use Rails the way it was meant to be used, right? So that's not like you said. It's easy to say, "Oh, I just have work to do," and then you're using that as a bad excuse for not learning how to use a tool. But I think it's a big ask, potentially a bigger ask, to understand deeply how use effect works in order to use it correctly. The set interval thing post from Dan Abramov is a good example. Like that's not something most average developers are going to be able to grasp when they first start using effect and run into those kinds of problems in their app.
I mean, yeah, we could set up like a fake React job posting and just ask people to write use interval as like the only test.
Yeah.
And we could give them the job if they get it right.
Yeah.
But we won't have to because no one will get it right.
Yeah, exactly. Truly, man. Truly. I mean, that's so that's a good way. That's a nice one to keep in the back pocket, which is like going back to what I said at the beginning of this conversation, which is that I feel like I'm two different people when I'm working on a low-level hook to get all the edge cases right and to make sure it's correct versus when I'm building features in app land and you feel like you're not working with high enough level tools. That's like the way to say that is like how much of the framework or how much of the problems that you reasonably expect to encounter as an app developer are you going to be able to use the tools that the framework gives you to solve in the way that the tools were meant to be used. And like, there's some percentage there. Like even in Rails, there's people who aren't using counter caches because they don't know about them. And they're like maybe a more fringed, API. And so people are going to be doing other random things that are going to be really bad. And you could be like, oh, just use a counter cache. So maybe there's some percent of Rails APIs that are in that category. Maybe 10%, maybe 20%, maybe it's 5%, and maybe most Rails developers fall into the pit of success and find the APIs that are meant to solve the problems they run into. And the question is with a tool like React, which basically has 3 APIs. I mean, honestly, like React has 3 APIs, you know?
Yeah.
Are you going to be able to, how often are you going to use the tools the way they're meant to be used to solve the problems? How often are you going to feel like you have to do things on your own?